raz.
Ceremonia zakończenia będzie tłumaczona.
Raz, dwa, trzy. So the House will please come to order. Please take your seats. We would like to welcome all of you on the second day of the Żermun 2019 conference. Today we will debate over the resolutions that we made up yesterday. And we will move now to the first resolution. Please remember about all your materials on your desk. And now, please, Julia, come to read your resolution. And of course, please, the human rights speakers are welcome here.
Forum, Human Rights Committee, question of the role of human activity in the reduction of the greenhouse effect. Acknowledging that average temperature on Earth is constantly growing, recalling that glaciers, which are an important part of our ecosystem, are melting in an intimidating pace. Having observed that sea level rises incessantly and it has never been at its current level before, pointing out greenhouse gases lead to economic crisis, fully alarmed that many species will become extinct, bearing in mind that greenhouse gases escalate the stronger winds and storms occurrence, observing the increase in numbers of clouds, recommends using filters for chimneys, suggests taking showers instead of baths, supports education of all generations on the planet, deplores using old-type light bulbs instead of eco-friendly ones, hopes to decrease deforestation and increase reforestation, calls to constrain using hot water instead of colder water, proposes to install eco-friendly systems to produce energy, for example, solar systems, instead of using fossil fuels or coal, asks to implement the rule of 3R, which means reduce, recycle, reuse, urges to develop technology of renewable energy sources such as solar power, hydropower, wind power, and geothermal power, endorses increasing the use of public transport, railways, buses, etc., encourages a reduction of using combustion cars, proclaims that the circulation of electronic documents is extended and the amount of paper documentation limited, recommends to limit the use of vaporizers, suggests economizing power, for example, by switching the lights off, asks to support charitable foundations which are taking care of our planet, encourages people in the government to divide their budget from the European Union or their countries to suffice the party refunds of the costs of buying electric cars, strongly urges to prohibit taxation of using renewable energy, proposes lowering the temperature in the houses of people living in hot countries by 2 degrees so that they do not overuse the air conditioning, proposes using photovoltaic panels wherever possible, especially in the regions which receive a lot of sunshine and reduce carbon dioxide emission at the same time, calls for reduction of electricity usage and using bulbs with compact fluorescent light in order to reduce global warming, endorses raising people's knowledge about the consequences of global warming and ways to reduce it, urges students to plant trees on Earth Day, calls to travel by car with friends rather than alone, proposes to increase fines for not having catalytic converters installed.
You all have heard the resolution. Are there any questions on the floor? Are there any questions on the floor? The delegate of the Brazil has the floor.
Cars, how you wanna do that?
Well, we can just replace the cars that emission a lot of gas, just replacing with the less emission ones.
Okay.
Are there any further questions on the floor? The delegate of Brazil has the floor.
You talk about change normal cars to electrical cars. Where will you take money for this?
Well, we could create a project with people who want to have the electric cars, pay funds to it to get the money to buy the cars.
Okay, other question. Why are you think that is good idea to change cars to electrical?
Because there are less emissions and it's better for the atmosphere.
Okay.
Are there any further questions on the floor? The delegate of Israel has the floor.
You said that you propose to install eco-friendly systems to produce energy, for example, solar systems instead of using fossil fuels. How you want to do that? Because in our world we use fossil fuels in about 60%.
Well, fossil fuels and or coal will run out quite fast, while solar power is like we always have sun and we will always have sunshine, wind, and all that. So we could reuse that.
Okay.
The delegate of Brazil has the floor.
You say urge students to plant trees on Earth Day. Why only the students?
Well, the school is a community, and by planting it with a community, we can invite other people from outside of school to join us.
Okay.
The delegate of Ukraine has the floor.
So you suggest that people should take showers instead of baths, but how you want to encourage people to this idea?
Well, in schools we could teach people what the impact of using showers and baths is, and then we could tell them that it's better to use showers instead of baths.
But what they you don't encourage them, then and just this don't work because people are when don't get benefits from this, I don't think they want to do this because people are selfish. They don't care about environment or something.
Well, I think we should just teach them about the environment and still encourage them. Not everyone is selfish and not everyone will follow that, but some people might.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions on the floor? The delegate of Colombia has the floor.
How are you going to raise people's knowledge about the consequences of global warming?
We could introduce it into schools, and we could just have workshops in school sometimes to teach about what it is and what are the consequences of global warming.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? The delegate of China has the floor.
How are you going to encourage people to travel with friends and not alone? For example, they go to work at a different time than each other.
Well, if someone has a different schedule than their friends, then it won't work if they go together. But if someone is going at the same time to the same place, then they should go together. That's what I think.
Okay.
Are there any further questions? The delegate of Canada has the floor.
You say the protected planners, they are the protected panels are really costly. How you wanna get money for this?
Well, we could make a project again and get funds from the people who want the photovoltaic panels and who can afford it. They can give us money, the funds, so we can make them.
Okay.
Are there any other questions on the floor? The delegate of Spain has the floor. Japan has the floor. Excuse me.
So you want to save the drinking water, what would you replace it with?
Could you repeat the question?
You want to save the drinking water. What would you replace it with?
I don't understand the question. Could you repeat it, please?
So it's like you call for saving drinking water.
To save hot water, you mean?
No, it's like saving drinking water. It's written here.
Could you repeat the question, the suggestion, please?
Let's maybe forget.
No, just repeat the suggestion.
Yeah, like it's said like calls for saving drinking water.
Tego nie mam. Well, not everyone has drinking water, but like we could like gather some water for the people who don't have it and just like share it out.
Are there any further questions on the floor? The delegate of France has the floor.
How would you convince people to use filters on their chimneys?
Well, we could teach them what they are and what they're used for and how it prevents global warming in schools again and in workplaces.
Yeah, but not every person who can decide to use a filter on their chimney is in school now, and they're adults.
Yeah, so maybe we could like tell the people at work, the adults, what it's for and how it like prevents global warming and climate change. And so they can pass it to their children and like their friends to make them know as well.
Okay, right.
Are there any further questions on the floor? The delegate of the Spain has the floor and will be followed by delegate of the China.
How are you going to decrease the deforestation and raise awareness about how are you going to decrease the deforestation and make bigger the reforestation? Because it doesn't say here.
Well, there is this thing called Earth Day where students and other people from around school can plant trees, and we could just tell them how it affects our atmosphere and the environment.
I understand that, as the previous speaker said, not all people from our society are at school. There are people who are 80 and they have no idea about the greenhouse effect. They don't know that the forests are decreasing, the amount of trees is decreasing. How are they going to know? How are they going to want to?
Well, we can make workshops about the greenhouse effect and climate change, and inviting everyone to learn about it, even the older people, the older people, yeah. And yeah.
But sometimes I know that people have to be willing to attend. However, older people don't always go out of their houses as much as younger people do. They are just tired. They don't care about our environment, and they are a huge part of our society.
Well, maybe some people from the workshop could visit the older people. It would be really nice for them, and also they can learn about the deforestation and reforestation.
Okay, thank you.
The delegate of China has the floor.
How are you going to convince people to buy electric cars when combustion cars are cheaper than electric cars?
We could lower the price of electric cars because combustion cars use more gas emissions, and let out more let out more gases into the atmosphere, while electric cars don't do that as much.
And where are you going to get the funding for charging stations for electric cars?
We can make a project about that again, and just gather the money from the people who want the electric cars.
And how are you going to raise awareness about it?
Well, again, we could do it in schools and have workshops about it.
Okay.
Are there any further questions on the floor? The delegate of Spain has the floor and will be followed by delegate of Portugal. Kenya, sorry.
Well, it says here that you want people to stop using the old type of light bulbs. And I know that it's well known that people should want to use eco-friendly bulbs, but most of our homes have the old type. Like, people still want to choose the cheapest one, and from what I know, the production of the eco-friendly bulbs is much more expensive, and producers don't want to decrease the price because it would be uneconomical.
But if they lower the prices and more people will be able to afford them, then I think more people will want to buy them, because they use less energy and give off more heat than the normal ones.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Speaker, in point 19 of your resolution, you propose using photovoltaic panels in countries that receive a lot of sunshine, which usually are which usually are third world countries. How are you going to solve the organizational and financial issues?
Well, we can have workshops or projects or teach them in schools what they are for and how they work on our atmosphere and the environment.
That doesn't answer my question.
Well, could you ask the question again?
In point 19, where you propose installing photovoltaic panels in countries which receive a lot of sunshine, there is one problem. The countries which receive a lot of sunshine are disproportionately third world. And how are you going to solve the organizational and financial problems of it?
Well, people from these countries that organize the photovoltaic panels can go to the countries that don't have that amount of money and don't have that organization, and they could help them with that.
All right, thank you.
The delegate of Brazil has the floor.
When will you change cars to electric ones, won't the price of electric rise?
Could you repeat the question again, please?
When we'll change cars to electric ones, won't the price of electricity rise?
Well, if we want to use the electric cars, then and not a lot of people can afford them, then I think the prices will be lowered, so more people can afford them, and they could be used more.
Okay.
The delegate of Kenya has the floor. It will be followed by the delegate of Colombia.
You say that indoors increasing the use of public transport. How are you going to make the people to do that?
Well, we can advertise why using public transport is kind of better than using single cars.
But for example, ticket for a ship is more expensive than where you're going to by car.
Well, they can have. Could you repeat the statement, please?
I say that it's more expensive is ticket to travel by ship, for example, by the car.
Well, they could make like, I don't know, they can have like 2 for 1, something like that, so the prices are lower for 2 people rather than making it more expensive.
Okay, thank you.
The delegate of Colombia has the floor.
You urge to prohibit taxation of using renewable energy. Well, I don't think it will be ever prohibited unless you have an idea how to do that.
Could you repeat the statement, please?
It's point 17. You urge to prohibit taxation of using renewable energy. I don't think it will be ever prohibited unless you have an idea how to do that.
Well, the people that don't use the renewable sources, the renewable energy, like the people that are using the renewable energy are doing more for the environment, while the people that are not doing anything for the environment, like, are doing less. And I think that we should like reduce the costs for the people for the renewable energy for the people that are using it.
Okay, fine.
The delegate of Canada has the floor.
You said that you want to change normal cars to electric one, but the electricity that's using with in charging stations is usually making by coal. What will you do with that?
Well, if the coal runs out, we could use renewable sources of energy such as solar power, hydropower, and geothermal power energy.
Okay.
The delegate of France has the floor.
How would you convince people to use less hot water? Because hot water is needed to do many of activities at home, like doing the washing up, doing the laundry, and things like that.
Well, we could like heat it up in some other way because using like boilers, there is gas emission and it gets into the atmosphere.
Yeah, thank you.
The delegate of Spain has the floor and will be followed by delegate of China.
I would like to ask about the rule of 3 R's, because it says reduce, recycle, and reuse. However, things that are mostly producing the carbon dioxide to our atmosphere are not reusable. For example, nuclear weapons, they are a huge mean of just decreasing our atmosphere and making the air so bad, and we cannot make a project to change that. We cannot just make people aware that in the government, in schools, that they are bad, because people want to have power, and to have power they have to have weapons, and weapons produce so much things that are bad for our atmosphere.
Well, I think we should like make some workshops or just tell people encourage people to not do that, because we could tell them the consequences of the nuclear bombs, for example, and we could just tell them what it does to the environment, and then they'll see the effect that it has on them.
I see, however, we cannot solve everything in the workshops. We have to somehow change the brains, as you say, of people. However, it's not that simple, because they think that they want to have power, and to have power they must have weapons. Weapons destroy our environment, and we cannot change people who are set on their goal to, for example, destroy North Korea.
Well, I think we should talk to like the government that has those nuclear weapons, and maybe like talk to them or with them to like ban those stuff, because they should know that it has a bad effect on the environment.
I don't think I agree with you. I think that the government doesn't want to listen. I think that if they have the choice to make their country bigger, to have more power, they are not going to care about the environment, because they will only be thinking about themselves. Because one thing is true, people are selfish, and countries are selfish. Sometimes they don't want to cooperate with each other to make something bigger, make something better.
Well, I don't think it's always going to work that they're going to cooperate, as you said, but like we can maybe talk to them about if they want to have power, just not use it like against the atmosphere, as in maybe not use the nuclear power, but like talk to the people that they want to, I don't know, like talk and not use nuclear weapons, say.
Okay, thank you.
The delegate of China has the floor.
What are we going to do with all of the leftover combustion cars?
Well, we can make them into electric cars, use the pieces that are still okay, we could make them into the electric cars.
And who is going to cover the costs?
We could make, as I said, we can make a project about it. As the people who want the electric cars can give in funds to get the money to buy the electric cars.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions? The delegate of Spain has the floor and will be followed by delegate of France.
How would you like to change paper documents into electrical documents, and what you would do with this paper?
Well, I think it would cut down less trees, and we could use it I don't know, people could email the documents to each other, because that is possible now.
Okay.
You said that you want to help charitable foundations which are taking care of our planet. And the question is, how would you get money for that to help them?
Well, it doesn't say help, but it asks them for support. We want to support. We could ask, well, it says to ask the charitable foundations to help us with it, so they can get involved in what we do, like the workshops to teach schools and workplaces.
Okay, thank you.
The delegate of Colombia has the floor and will be followed by delegate of Spain.
Again, about paper documents, I don't think that every paper document can be replaced, because those important need handwritten signatures on them, so they can be in electronic version.
Well, I don't know, maybe they could meet up and talk about it and have it, well, not signed, but they could talk about it and have an agreement, face to face and not through paper.
Okay, thank you.
I also have a question about the paper documents. The things sometimes that have started in the past are not to be changed. And I think that having an electric copy of every document is not always the safest. The technology is moving forward constantly, and new people learn new things about new ways how to get into programs, how to break a code. And it is so much simpler than just enter the building, than just break the safe. It's so much safer to have some very important documents in a normal, traditional way. How are you going to secure the future somehow of our governments, of our children, to be safe and not be scared of always being infiltrated?
Well, as you said, there could be hackers that hack into the documents, but also the documents that are on paper could be lost, and it's not always possible that they can find that. So this and that is not as safe. So it has its cons and pros.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
The delegate of Colombia has the floor and will be followed by the delegate of Brazil.
You said you want to teach people or in the workshop about the greenhouse effect. Don't you think that will be boring for them by the, for example, third time? Have you got any other way to teach them?
Well, it's not only about talking to them, saying what it is, how it works. Like they could have some, activities teaching them about the consequences and stuff, not just talking to them, just integrating them with each other.
Okay, thank you.
The delegate of Israel has the floor. The delegate of Portugal has the floor.
So, I wanted to ask, what do you actually mean by point 18? Because you say you want to make the temperature lower by 2 degrees, so people don't have to overuse the air conditioning. How you want to do that?
Well, say it's really cold in the house, for example, and people usually switch it to the maximum, and I don't think they should always do that. They should switch it say 2 degrees, like it says here, but not to the maximum, say 5 degrees. Switch it a little bit lower, so it saves the money.
So you think that 2 degrees will be enough in hot countries, yeah?
I'm not saying, this is an example of 2 degrees. It's just don't switch it up to the maximum, that's what I mean.
Okay, thanks.
The delegate of Canada has the floor and will be followed by a delegate of Ukraine.
Okay, so all your answers are not to be in all the time, because I think that you can't do all the things because all your answers is government, but government isn't an answer of all your propositions how to help the world and what you will do, because all the time government is selfish and he doesn't think about the environment, but he's wrong in the scale world.
Well, then I think if the people want a good government to not be selfish, then I think they should, vote for someone who isn't selfish and who does something for the country.
Okay.
how do you want to encourage people to use public transport? Because I think people want to live comfortable and they prefer to use drive by their own cars than by bus full of the other people.
Well, if they have like friends going the same way, then I think they should go together. So it just saves but like if you don't know someone and you don't feel comfortable with going with them in the car to some place, then I don't think you should.
Okay, thank you.
The delegate of Canada has the floor and will be followed by the delegate of Spain.
In point 16, it says that the government is encouraged to divide their budget from the European Union and or their countries to suffice the partly refunds of the cost of buying electric cars. But the governments have some kind of agreements with the companies all over the world that they are good, that they are places that people of employment. How are they going to just stop with that? How are they going to change their whole economy to make a difference? Because the agreements are made basically for life. The agreements are kind of things that for years they would have to be in court to break them. And it would cost them so much more money than just dividing their budget into electric cars.
Well, they could like talk again and have an agreement with the people who want to have the electric cars or change things. And like if they agree on that, then I think they should change that. But if they don't, then don't change it.
Then this point wouldn't be in this resolution, shouldn't be in this resolution, because it doesn't stand for itself. It doesn't stand in the world. It is not a resolution. It is not a solution.
Well, if our government wants the electric cars to be in the world and be used, then I think they should ask, because they are in agreement with the European Union, and I think they should talk to them about having the electric cars, because that's what they think of having them, and they think it's more economical.
Okay, thank you.
The delegate of Canada has the floor and will be followed by delegate of Greece.
You said that you wanted to lower the price of electric cars, but the cost of making new ones is already big and it will not reduce. How you want to do with that thing?
Could you repeat the question, please?
You said that you wanted to lower the price of electric cars, but the cost of making new ones is already big and it will not reduce.
Well, you could, like, from the electric, you can make something from the old cars? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
The delegate of Greece has the floor and will be followed by delegate of France.
How are you going to make people support charity foundation who cares about our world?
Could you repeat the question, please?
How are you going to make people support foundation who cares about our world?
Well, we could we can invite them to the charitable foundations and teach them about what it is and how they could help and how it will affect the environment.
Okay, thank you.
How would you to convince people to implement the rule of free hour?
Well, we could, we could teach them in schools what it is and how it affects, and also in workplaces. And well, with the older people, we could, I don't know, a couple of people could go to them and teach them about it and invite them to do it as well.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
And the delegate of Israel has the floor.
What if your plans don't work? There is a possibility that people will not agree to the proposals given and the government will not agree to your proposals.
Could you repeat the question again?
What if your plans don't work out? There is a possibility that people won't agree to the proposals given and the government will not agree to proposals.
Well, then we can make other propositions that will work with the government and the people.
Okay, but you have got also the plans and not the expect what to do.
Could you repeat it again, please?
You have got also the plans, you don't know what to do. Because what if your plans don't work? Where are other plans?
Well, then we can have another plan to, like, if this one doesn't work, as you said, then we can have another one.
Okay, but where are they?
Well, people could, like, think of what to do if something doesn't work.
Okay.
The delegate of Kenya has the floor.
How do you want to support kids' education on all the planet?
Well, we could have like some teachers do some of the teachers that want to do courses about climate change, and they could just teach the children to support the planet.
But it's not possible in some countries like Kenya or other countries in Africa.
We could like send over, I don't know, books or something to teach them about it.
Okay, thanks.
The delegate of China has the floor.
How are we going to encourage people to use public transport, for example, railways, when there is a shortage of railway drivers and it's not a profitable profession to be in?
Well, we could encourage people we could teach them about why it's better to use public transport, and then we could encourage people to, I don't know, become drivers for railways.
Okay.
The delegate of Ukraine has the floor.
So in point 14, you suggest economizing power, for example, by switching the lights off. But for example, in many factories, power is needed 24 hours. And did you think about countries like Ukraine, where at 6 p.m. in winter it's already dark? You want people go to sleep at 6 p.m.? Or what about Iceland, where half of the year is dark?
Well, in this point, I mean switching it off like when you don't need it. As in, like you said, they should use the light. They should switch on the lights when they need it. But say some people, when they go out the house, I don't know, they forget or they just don't switch off the light. And I think they really should, because it saves money and energy.
Okay.
Are there any further questions on the floor? Now we are moving to voting procedures. All those in favor of the resolution, please raise your hand. Okay, all those against the resolution, please raise your hands. Are there any abstentions? Please raise your hand. The resolution has been carried.
So now the chair calls upon the speakers of the Environment Committee to read the resolution to the House. The the delegate of France, you're the speaker of the Environment Committee, please.
Affirming that high level of pollution caused by coal, many countries still use it on a high level. Pointing out China, which has produced nearly 3.7 billion tons of coal, representing 47% of the global total coal yield. Keeping in mind that the United States is the second worldwide in a coal production generation, generating 992 million tons of coal in the 2012-2013. Having noticed that India is the third largest coal producer, having produced over 605 million tons, and having consumed 68% of it in generating electricity. Affirming that Australia coal output reached 443 million tons, and the country has exported 90% of its coal. Declaring that Indonesia, which comes fifth in the coal production, has consumed 44% of coal for electricity production. Having examined Russia's coal production for 354.8 million tons of coal in 2012, which open-pit mining accounts for more than half of Russia's coal production. Having acquired South Africa on 7th place of global coal production, have produced 260 million tons of coal, and having estimated that over 90% of South Africa's electricity depends on coal. Realizing that coal is a carbon-rich black rock that releases energy when burned, most of the countries acquire electricity from coal. Having studies that after burning coal, it releases a number of airborne toxins and pollutants, which are mostly heavy metals. Having heard that health impacts caused by burnt coal can range from asthma and breathing difficulties to brain damage, heart problems, cancer, and even premature death. Having adopted limits set by Environment Protection Agency, which have helped prevent some of the emissions. Many coal plants do not have the necessary pollution controls installed. Bearing in mind that when you burn charcoal in a grid, ash is left over. The same is true with coal-fired power plants, which produce more than 100 million tons of ash, and more than half of the waste ends up in a pond, lakes, and other water objects. Keeping in mind the climate change is coal's most serious long-term global impact, which may cause drought, sea level rise, flooding, and other extreme weather phenomena.
Asks countries to close the oldest and the dirtiest coal plants, encourages countries to replace coal with renewable energy, confirms that solar plants provide more workplaces than the coal plants, recommends creation of a special international fund to finance ecological furnaces, urges to set restrictive rules for CO2 consumption in households under the threat of financial penalties, suggests investing in renewable energy sources and in logistics, e.g. electric car engines, supports quenching factories driven by hard coal, requests transition to service provision instead of heavy industry in national economies, urges to raise people's awareness about bad effects of coal burning by using social medias, proposes the government to raise the taxes for the companies which exceed allowed norms of CO2 emissions, recommends making a special fund which would help to finance the special filters for the chimneys to reduce the emission of CO2. It could be financed by the countries which use the biggest amount of the coal, and requests to gain electric power from the rubbish decomposing which creates methane biogas rather than from coal.
So you have all heard the resolution. The chair fixes a debate time of 15 minutes for and against the motion. Are there any questions on the floor? The delegate of China.
How are we going to replace all of the coal cookers in all of people's homes? They are very common and they are not easy to replace because you need to replace the whole system in your house.
Yeah, but we should convince the more and more people to do it because it's worthy to save our environment, and the richest people should do it because they have money to do it, and they should have a will to do it too.
And how are you going to eradicate the use of coal when it's the most popular energy source in the entire world and many countries are only dependent on it?
We could convince countries to build more wind power plants, water power plants, and geothermal power plants, because many of countries which use a lot of coal, like China, can build water power plants, maybe because China has got a lot of rivers and things like that.
And if we are going to eradicate the use of coal, what are we going to do with all of the power plants that are made specifically for it?
I think we should replace them with ecological power plants, and that would take a lot of money, but we should create a foundation or something like that to help the government do it.
Okay, thank you.
The delegate of Turkey, you have the floor.
What about harmful effect coming from burning rubbish?
So we don't want that. So we're gonna the rubbish will be recycled and created through some kind of other material to produce the electricity.
Okay, no further questions.
The delegate of Poland, you have the floor.
So you want to convince people to pay higher taxes because some people don't have money for the taxes now.
I think that people should pay higher taxes for things like coal and coal burning furnaces, but they should pay lower taxes on the ecological energy sources and ecological furnaces, ecological electric heat systems at homes, because that will convince them to use ecological energy.
Okay, thank you.
The delegate of Kenya, you have the floor.
I have a question to support quenching factories driven by hard car. My question is, what about countries which economy is mainly created by hard coal.
So maybe like the biggest countries that are dependent on coal and maybe they are transferring to ecological systems, they could finance the transfer of poorer countries to make our earth cleaner and just stop the air pollution.
But these countries, for example, Saudi Arabia or Venezuela, isn't exist.
What isn't exist?
Can you rephrase your question, please?
Yeah.
My question is, what about countries which economy is mainly created by hard coal, and what about countries, for example, Saudi Arabia or Venezuela, and for example, when we close these factories, these countries don't exist.
But we're not gonna close them all at the same time, but in some time we're gonna close them like part to part, not at all of them, and like other countries could finance the poorer countries to like create some kind of factories for these poor countries.
Like it was, for example, in Germany, the factories were gradually closed there, and they didn't lose anything.
Okay, thank you.
The delegate of Spain, you have the floor.
The countries should stop and just close the dirtiest, the most polluting factories in the region. However, the area where those plants are actually sometimes the poorest, and they are the source of employment for so many people that if you closed one of them, you would face a wave of protests, and the government would spend even more money just paying off the police to stop them, and just facing the bad social media who would do that. Like, what country would want to face just a bad renown all over the world because of closing a dirty factory that nobody's ever heard of?
Of course, we don't have to close all the factories in poorer areas of the world, because we can easily install, for example, filters on the chimneys of the factories in that areas. But I think we should close the factories, coal-fired factories, of course, in the richer areas.
If you mean as area the poor countries, the countries of Asia, the countries of South America, but what if in the United States of America there is this town, Detroit, and there was some time ago the Ford factory. It was producing so much coal, and and after closing it, it had been closed a long time ago, and after closing it, people were poor. The Detroit became a gang-sourced town. The economy there was failing. Everything was plummeting there. How are you going to fix it? Because sometimes even putting the filters on the chimneys and not closing the factory is not the answer, because the mechanisms are so old. They are just from the beginning of their creation. They had been so bad for the environment. How are you going to do that? Not closing the factory and not putting the chimneys.
I think that we shouldn't. I think that we should still think about closing the factories because in cities like Detroit, doesn't have money for that, of course. But I think that cities like New York and Los Angeles and Washington should send them financial help to do this because areas like Detroit, for example, need to be need a progress to need a financial help to do this progress.
However, for the most of the times, the factories are essential to the economy of a country. Just not consider the America, consider other countries, and they are essential to the economy. Closing it and paying people, so taking the money always flowing every month from the factory and giving away the dolls to the people who lost their jobs, and that would be just, I think, just somehow inefficient.
I think that we shouldn't close. Maybe we shouldn't close that factories, but we should constantly replace the energy sources from which the energy in the is delivered to these factories. Like we should constantly replace the coal furnaces with, for example, solar panels and things like that. But because people won't lose their jobs then.
But they would have to be qualified in the so-called workshops. They would have to be re-qualified because in the solar factories or the wind factory, the wind energy plants, I think it's called like that, they have to have different set of skills than they've been doing for their whole lives.
Yeah, because this process can't be introduced now. We should aware people about that we want to introduce this process and educate many people to work in that factories.
Okay, so this point is just for somehow a faraway future.
Yeah, it will be introduced in the future because it can't be introduced now because, as you said, many of people who work at the factories would lose their jobs and they want to have their financial help or something like that.
Okay, so I would just like to mention that in 13 years, as the some kind of organization of United Nations said that in 13 years our planet will become uninhabitable because of the greenhouse effect, because it will be too hot in here. So a future plan is not really sustainable. But thank you.
So what about creating a financial help foundation for people who work at those factories which gets energy from coal and replace these people in these factories with people educated to work with wind-powered factories, maybe?
We also have to mention that the greenhouse effect is becoming smaller and smaller, at least reports say that.
Yeah, that's right.
I just read that in 13 years that will be over. So I think that you answered my question. Thank you.
So the debate is now closed. We will move to the voting raise your plackets. And everyone who rejects the resolution, please raise your plackets. The staff ladies, please count the votes. How many people are against the resolution? Yeah, please keep your plackets in the. So there are 19 people against the resolution, and please one more time, everyone in favor, please raise your plackets. Can you count it now? So the resolution has passed by 47 votes who were in favor of the resolution and 19 votes who rejected it. So the resolution has passed.
Thank you.
I would like to call upon the next submitters of the next committee to read the resolution to the House. It will be the political committee.
Political Committee. Question of the role of member states in the environmental protection and in the sustainable management of natural resources. Aware of fact that air pollution with the dangerous substances in it, such as exhaust fumes, industrial gases, toxic gas substances, radioactive explosions, can cause deterioration of living conditions and of course air conditions. Deeply disturbed that nearly 68 of the professional hydroelectric power stations have already exceeded 50 years of operation, which means that their technical condition is no longer appropriate. Fully alarmed that majority of the member state countries recycle less than half of the waste. Further, deploring that cities are now aware of impact they have on the environment. Deeply conscious that increasing amount of fume gases, dust in the atmosphere exposes people to serious health problems. Further, deploring that only in 2015, pollution killed 9 million people in the world. Bearing in mind that the average of European produces 481 kilograms of municipal waste per year. Deeply disturbed by appearance of deforestation problem in countries like Spain and in many African countries. Knowing that natural resources management refers to management of natural resources such as land, water, soil, plants and animals, with a particular focus of how management affects the quality of life for both present and future generations. Keeping in mind that natural resources management brings together land use planning, water management, biodiversity, conservation, and the future sustainability of industries like agriculture, mining, tourism, fisheries, and forestry. Realizing that natural resources, especially water and soil, are essential for the function of structure and agricultural production system and for the overall social and the environmental sustainability. Aware of the fact that without improved efficiency measures, agricultural water consumption is expected to rise by 20% globally by 2015. Climate change is already affecting water supply and agriculture through changes in the seasonal timing of rainfall and snowpack melt, as well as with higher occurrence and severity of droughts and floods. Alarmed that fact of 1/3 of the planet land is severely degraded and fertile soil is being lost at the rate of 24 billion tons a year as a consequence of bad farming practices. Suggest limiting carbon dioxide emission by installing filters on chimneys. Emphasize the importance of investment in modern, smart, and clean infrastructure. Develop a wide range of ecosystem services, such as water purification, high-quality indicators, space for recreation and climate mitigation and adaptation. Requests all countries to replace ordinary waste containers with recycling bins and substitution of some materials for more environmentally friendly or reusable ones. For example, replace plastic bags for cotton ones. Propose to create a place where citizens will benefit from handing in recyclable materials, for example, earning money from giving back plastic and glass bottles. Encourages countries to support and invest in cleaning air methods such as planting trees and using air filters. Urges to make people aware of the problem by printing leaflets and posters, making more TV advertisements about the issue, conducting lessons in school about ways to protect the environment and the effect of not protecting it. Recommends interesting penalties for people who cut trees illegally by writing to the administration of the city, realizing that youth should be educated during school lessons about the environmental problems and methods of solving them by presentations and lectures how to simply save energy. For example, turn off the light when you are no longer in the room, save water, etc. Desires to encourage all citizens to commute by public transport to reduce exhaust gases by TV advertisements, posters, and organizing days when people do not have to pay for the bus tickets. Encourages the protection and restoration of water source and promote water use optimization. Requires the implementation of system wastewater treatment before reuse or disposal. Propose to foster soil conservation and to improve some farming practices. Suggest promoting waste reduction, recycling, and responsible disposal. Proposes to introduce limits in the area of deforestation.
Are there any questions on the floor? The delegate of China has the floor and will be followed by the delegate of... Could you please rotate it? Of Israel.
How are you going to reduce the deforestation in Africa? Because they are currently
Okay, so we would take money from richer countries and donate them into countries of Africa to let's say just plant these trees over there, and to encourage people is good.
And how are you going to encourage people in Africa that it's good when they almost don't have the large amount of African population doesn't go to school?
So we will have a political program that will take part in all African small cities and bigger cities, in just all Africa, and it will encourage all people, I think.
Okay.
The delegate of Israel has the floor.
Okay, so you suggest promoting waste reduction, recycling, and responsible disposal. So why you want to reduce the amount of waste that you recycle?
Could you repeat?
Why you want to reduce the amount of waste that you recycle?
So it's good to reduce it, because if we reduce it, we can send money to some other district of our country, of our
But you didn't still answer my question. This point has got no sense.
Okay, so could you one more time please repeat?
You suggest promoting waste reduction, recycling, and responsible disposal. So why you want to reduce the amount of waste that you recycle?
Because
Could you please rephrase your question?
You suggest promoting waste reduction, recycling, and responsible disposal. So why you want to reduce the waste reduction, recycling? Point 13.
So suggesting that to people would make it easier, would make
Could you rephrase it in Polish language?
Dlaczego chcecie ograniczyć śmieci, które recyklingujecie?
Ponieważ mogłoby to zmniejszenie ilości wydawanych tych śmieci zmniejszy nam koszty recyklingu.
Ale co z tymi śmieciami dalej będzie? Gdzie one się pojawią?
Te śmieci, które po prostu, których nie wyprodukujemy, nie będziemy musieli ich przetwarzać, więc nie pojawią się.
No dobra.
Are there any further questions on the floor? Delegate of Colombia has the floor and will be followed by delegate of Germany.
My question is, how do you find people who illegally cut trees?
Our services in forests can make it, or we can just put some cameras in forests.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions? Okay, so delegate of China has the floor and will be followed by the delegate of the France.
And my question is, how are you going to install fruits in Africa home when they don't have chimney?
If they don't have chimneys, we would just not installing filters there, and that's all.
Okay.
So delegate of Colombia has the floor and will be followed by the delegate of Germany.
So you request all countries to replace ordinary waste containers with recycling bins. Do you mean those public or those in households?
I mean both in public and in-house.
All right. Do you realize that it will cost a huge amount of money to replace them?
Yes, of course, but it will, if we put some money in these recyclable things, we can just make more money after remake it into more eco-friendly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so delegate of the Germany has the floor now and will be followed by the delegate of the France.
Okay, I've got a question to the point number 5. You wrote here that you want to encourage countries to support and invest in cleaning air methods, such as planting trees and using air filters. And I've got a question, how do you want to encourage other countries to do this? Because there are a lot of countries which don't have money, for example, for buying air filters.
So, encouraging these countries, money to encourage these countries will be taken from European Union, for example, or from donation of some, let's say, good people, and we will encourage these people in smallest country, for example, in Africa, in schools, or if they don't have, if children don't go to school, we would just make an
Okay.
So delegate of the France has the floor now and will be followed by the delegate of Portugal.
How would you stop people who are cutting down the trees illegally?
As I said, we would put cameras in forests, and we would know who is cutting these trees illegally, and that's all. And we will just catch them.
Yeah, okay, but it's difficult to catch these people.
If we, for example, have a signature of their faces on camera, it's easy.
Yes, but it's too expensive too.
Yes, but government can't send money to some smaller cities to forests.
Okay, thank you.
could the point 7 be formulated more precisely, please? By writing to the administration of the city part is really vague.
It's like going to this city's administration and just telling them or sending them some notes, for example.
All right, thank you.
So the debate is now closed. We'll move now into voting procedures. All those in favor of this solution, please raise your plackets. All those against the solution, please raise your plackets. So the motion hasn't passed.
Also, we would like to mention that our conference is streamed live on Facebook, so all of your family or friends can watch it. Just find First the Loże Romskie on Facebook and everything is streamed online. Anyway, I call upon the submitter of the ECOSOC committee to read the resolution to the House and also the speakers.
Forum, the General Assembly, question of economic and social effect on the climate change. The General Assembly, Economic and Social Council. According to the Fighting Climate Change Organization, change of the climate is no longer a far-off problem. It is happening here, it is happening now. Knowing that global warming is a growing concern that has been spreading to different sectors of society, the temperature is rising, which can have a huge impact on social scales. Keeping in mind the global climate changes are very harmful to the environment. Glaciers are melting, flowers growing faster, sea levels increase, very intensive and dangerous heat waves occur, and last but not least, temperatures rise very fast, and these phenomena can have a huge influence on the people's health and life. Aware of the fact that temperature rising can destroy crops and induce mortality, having studied that temperature changes lower the sweet corn crops and many other crops to around 48%. Having studied the issue too well, no scientist, ecologist, Stephen Pakala and physician Robert Sokolow created 15 wedges whose aim is to stop the phenomenon of global warming. Keeping in mind that tropical tornadoes can cause death of many living creatures and also reduce industrial and economic efficiency. Emphasizing the fact that extreme precipitations harms economies and population in agricultural dependent settings. Pointing out that the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change, created by the World Meteorological Organization in partnership with the United Nations Environmental Programme, is the leading international scientific body related to climate change research. Observing the agencies whose task is to deal with climate change, there are two worth mentioning: WMO and UNEP. Pointing out UN Environment Programme and World Meteorological Organization, which deal with the environmental changes and also forecast the climate change. According to scientists, some groups of people can be affected by climate change very deeply, especially those who live in vulnerable areas and poor and sick. Having considered that flooding, droughts, and hurricanes can become stronger and longer, aware that due to climate change, lots of plants and animal species can become extinct or change their macrohabitats. Deeply concerned by the fact in 2100 years, the sea levels will rise approximately by 1 to 4 feet, and the Antarctic will be left without ice and glaciers, causing death of many animal species. Emphasizing about all the infrastructure, transport system, energy, and water supplies can be in danger. In accordance with WMO, extreme weather phenomena can cause lack of work and unemployment. Having examined the reason of global warming, it can be said that people do not recycle trash, do not talk about climate, waste too much energy and water. They also cut too many trees, burn rubbish and coal in furnaces, do not use renewable energy, throw litter to forests or rivers. Observing that there are no financial penalties on people and companies which pollute the environment. Deeply regretting that in Europe the water poor areas are increasing and population who lives there is constantly decreasing. Deeply disturbed by the fact that extreme climate phenomena cause visible social loss. Having noticed that tourism suffers from changing weather conditions. Fully aware of the fact that prices of food, coal, electricity and gas are still increasing. Having studied that climate changes are connected to people migrations, reminding of increasing amount of money which is spent on treating people who are suffers from the dangerous disease, aware of the fact that climate change can lead to melting glaciers, which is the reason of water level rising, alarmed by rising temperatures which can cause droughts, having heard that climate changes connected with human activity cause death of many species of animals and plants, fully aware that modern farming suffers from changes in humidity and temperature which prevent farmers from growing plants typical for the regions. Having received information about spreading of dangerous disease such as malaria into areas that have never experienced them before, keeping in mind that greenhouse effects make UV radiation more and more dangerous for people and causing skin cancer, encourages to use renewable energy sources, encourages to introduce individual days of free public transport, expresses its hope in children who should be educated about global warming, requests that all nations should create foresting areas, supports cleaning up the sweetwater areas, urges to reduce using plastic, e.g. drinking liquids in reusable bottles, encourages banning the sale of halogen bulbs and having electric light, deplores deforestation of rainforest, encourages reducing taxes on electric cars, calls upon the protection of endangered species and introducing penalties for padlocks, suggests introducing promotional prices for products with an expiring date of consumption, affirms using chimney filters, suggests using the public transport more often than using private means of transport like cars, proposes planting new plants and trees, urges to learn about environmental protection in school, e.g. to invite ecologists to schools to talk about the environmental threats, calls for saving drinking water, proclaims recycling waste, proposes to stop cutting down forests, calls for buying solar panels, condemns the destruction of the environment.
You have all heard the resolution. So now, are there any questions? Okay, the delegate of China has the floor.
Looking at your resolution, I can deduct that point 3 and point 15 are almost the same. And examining point 15, you say you want to invite ecologists to schools to talk about environmental threats, but how are you going to fund the ecologists to take their time? Yes.
Ecologists want to educate students too. A lot of organizations make meetings with the teachers, students, and children from kindergarten just to tell them what they should do, what's wrong now with our planet, and how can they help them.
Yes, but contrary to popular beliefs, ecologists have their job too, and they need to fulfill it. And they don't usually have the time to just come into a school. They want to get paid as everyone. And how are you going to achieve?
They want to get paid. The government can pay them as an extra money in their salary. In opinion of this resolution, ecologists there in Jura have an extra lessons, like 2 days in wood, with ecologists, with scientists that will help you and tell you what you should do.
And how are you going to explain the fact that point 3 and point 15 are almost the same?
Point 3 is telling about children from poor countries like Africa or Israel. We are sending the voluntaries there to tell these kids about the global warming, because some of them think that the sweet water just in magic fact disappear.
Okay, thanks.
So, delegate of France has the floor.
How would you to convince the government to introduce individual days of free public transport? I think it's too expensive to do that.
It's not a big problem because Poland is doing this thing in the winter right now. So I think if we lost so much money if programs that were never listed, we can have money for the individual days of free public transport.
Okay, and understand. Thank you.
So, delegate of Kenya has the floor.
You said you want to reduce taxes for people with electric cars, but what will you do if somebody will only buy it to reduce his taxes, but he will not use it?
People need to go to the government and write a paper that how many cars are they having and what type of car they are using. So they will pay taxes for a normal car if they use it, and for the electric car if they write this on a paper.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so delegate of Poland has the floor. Yes, you.
You said about the saving drinking water.
Yeah.
How would you do that?
We can stop using so much water taking a baths, we can take showers, we can use washing machines, then wash with hands. We can build a natural water reservoirs. So this is how we can do this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so delegate of Poland again.
How do you want to install solar panels if Poland doesn't have the right climate for that? And what do you want to replace it?
Every climate is good for solar panels because the UV is always going to the earth. So this is not a problem.
But in my research, I think that Poland doesn't have the right climate for solar panels.
But people still use it in Poland, and they buy new and we have been more and more.
Okay, thank you.
Remember that the technology is still developing, yes. So, delegate of Brazil has the floor.
I've got a question of point 2. You said that we should introduce individual days for free public transport. But what if drivers are against it? They may not want to work for free, and drivers must pay for gasoline. What do you think will pay for it?
The government and the taxes. We pay taxes from a lot of things. We can get an extra bank account in our governmental bank, so we can invest it in the public transport.
Okay.
So, delegate of Ukraine has the floor. one on the right.
So, you want to replace plastic bottles for renewable ones, but now people can get, for example, glass bottles in shops. And after all, they still choose the plastic ones. How do you want to influence people's decisions?
We can buy in shops the plastic bottle that we can reuse a lot of times. We can just wash it, and this is not a big problem. You can buy a glass bottle in a shop. It can be with beer, with a cola, and you can go and you can change it for money.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so delegate of Russia has the floor.
In the third point you wrote, expresses its hopes in children who should be educated about global warming. Are only children going to be educated about it?
Not only children will be educated, but people in school, because people that they are older, they watch news, they watch the information programs, and they know a lot more than the kids in kindergarten or primary schools.
What if someone doesn't watch the TV and they don't know a lot about the global warming? And
They read newspapers.
Okay.
Delegate of France has the floor.
Where would you take the people who plant the trees from?
Can you repeat?
From where would you take people who would plant the new trees? Because you said that you will plant the new trees and plants.
Yes, they can be volunteers, children from school, people who want to make a difference in living. This is not a big deal.
Yeah, but don't you think that there are too low amount of volunteers, and we should maybe pay the people to doing their job of planting the trees?
I don't think so. We should pay them because they are not the gardening. But for example, the water from Żywiec Zdrój has an action once a year. How many bottles you will buy? This number of trees we will plant.
So maybe organize more of projects like that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, delegate of Norway has the floor.
So you said to clean the sweet water areas, and I think because of that, that would be expensive. So because of that, the price of water will rise. So my question is what to do to don't make water too expensive for people?
It won't be more expensive because we can make charity events to make money for this, and we can pay divers to clean the bed of water.
But will people want to give the money for that? Because we've already made an ideas for creating a lot of charities. So I don't think that people will give so much money for all that.
Yeah, but there are a lot of charities who help children, but there are not a lot of charities that help to clean the water. Every country has a polluted river, a polluted lake, a polluted sea. The Baltic Sea is an example.
Right, that's good.
Delegate of Spain has the floor.
In point 18, you propose to stop cutting down the forest. However, how are you going to enforce this if, for example, in Siberia, there are almost 60% of Siberia is uninhabited, and people can go there and cut down the tundra, and it will not be noticed until the whole forest, the whole tundra disappears.
Right now, we can open the reserves or national parks when the forest officers will take care of the places.
But you would need a lot of money, and I think that it would it would take a lot of time to train the people to teach them how they are going to behave in a situation when they see a person cutting down a tree.
People who live in Siberia know what's going to happen if the tundra will be cut down. They won't have food because the animals will be dead because they won't have a place to live. They won't have oxygen, and the natural government of this place won't exist.
But in those places in the world where people don't have internet, they don't have access to their social media, they don't know what happens, they don't know what will happen if they do something. They cut down a tree, okay, the whole society of this place is okay with it because they've been doing it for years and years and years. You would have to change not only how the land is parted, divided onto national parks, but you would have to change the mindset of people.
I think people through these years see how much they destroy the nature there, and they don't need internet, TV, or any newspapers. They see what they are doing, and they have their own mind. So, in my opinion, and opinion of a resolution, this won't be a problem because they know what's going to be good for them and for the nature.
People are not affected just without anything, like seeing a deer that is dead, seeing that there are no birds. They don't see that because, oh, I'm cold, I want to make a fire, I want to just warm myself up. They will cut the tree. Despite the fact that it is in a national park, despite the fact that there are no animals in the area.
Right now, the temperatures are rising, and people are buying the land in Siberia to have some cold space. So they are not only thinking about the temperature, because they are not this low as they were.
Yeah, they always are decreasing, but the people also are like they are adjusting to the temperature, and the higher the temperature, the lower their sustainability to the temperature of their surroundings. So the warmer it is, even the smallest drop of the temperature will affect them more.
No, I don't. This can work, but people need to want this. If we want to help the tundra in Siberia, we can educate the people. We can make special newspapers or some books from the ecological paper to teach them what they should do and what can they do to help the nature.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate of Colombia has the floor.
In Poland, people are still being not interested in the impact of climate change on the world. What is the best way to solve this problem? What do you think?
Can you repeat?
In Poland, people are still being not interested in the impact of climate change on the world. What is the best way to solve this problem?
That's not true. Poland is not interested in a changing climate because we've got a big problem with smog and with the temperatures. Right now, the temperatures in USA are on -20, and in Poland we are on 70 on a plus. So we see how the global warming is working, and we see we need to end this as fast as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now last few questions. So, delegate of Brazil has the floor.
So you are saying that people who don't use public transport will pay taxes that will go for people that actually use this, so they can like ride for free.
Can you repeat?
You said that people who don't use public transport will like ride by this bus for 3 days. You are saying that people who don't use public transport will pay taxes that will go for people that actually use this, so they can like ride for free.
I'm not telling the people who don't ride public transport will pay taxes. We can take a small part of the taxes from other things and make a special account which can afford the free public transport for everybody. And I think if public transport will be free, people will start using it, because this we have so many cars and traffic, so people, when they go to work, they stay for 30 minutes extra.
Yeah, but people who actually don't even use this public transport will have to pay their taxes.
They're paying normal taxes, and a small part from these taxes will be taken for the taxes for free public transport.
Thank you.
So, delegate of Portugal has the floor.
How is point 11 going to be enforced?
Can you repeat?
How point 11 is going to be enforced?
How are we going to use it, you mean?
How you are going to enforce it? Implement it? Put it into
The
action.
speaker appears not to have heard your question, so can you repeat?
How are you going to implement point 11?
Some of countries had done this. We're gonna get an expiring date of a product for an extra parts in shops, which is gonna cost about 15 or 75% lower. So people can buy this, and we won't reduce so much food.
So do you mean that the government will regulate the prices?
Something like this. This gonna look like you're gonna have an extra shelf with this type of products, which usually will go to the trash, and now they're gonna be 15% off.
Excuse me, will the hall please come to order, okay? Be more quiet, okay?
All right, thank you.
So, delegate of Ukraine has the floor. The one on the right, maybe.
So you encourage people to replace halogen bulbs and saving electric lights, but this is so expensive, and I think people won't replace all bulbs in their house. How do you encourage people to buy more expensive bulbs?
Right now, the European Union got a new law that said we cannot buy the halogen bulbs. So right now we just need to make some changes in shops.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, delegate of Ukraine again.
I want to ask about point 16. You want to calls for saving drinking water, but activities like that have been taken for many years before, and it didn't work. So why you think it will work now, or what original idea do you have that you think now people will change their mind?
We are living in 21st century, so we've got internet, newspapers, TV, the influencers on social media. A lot of people are talking about things like this, about saving water, planting new trees. So right now it won't be a problem talking and about this and helping the environment.
Yes, talking it's not a problem because we are talking about this very much, but still it didn't work. It doesn't make a huge change. People still are wasting water. So I'm asking, what original idea do you have? Because TV programs, newspapers are used for many years before, so something new maybe.
Right now the taxes for water are higher, and if the water will be used so many liters, the tax is going to go upper and the people will need to pay more money. So if they will pay more money, they won't use so much water because it won't be cheap as it was.
So you won't make water more expensive, and you think that will be okay?
Water is was always expensive, and the prices will go higher if we won't reduce using it.
So you are saying that water is now expensive, and you want to make it more expensive, because many people maybe can't afford to use water to normal activities.
Now we've got so many electric inventions that can help us to reduce using so much water.
Yes, but this point is about calls for the people that they must saving water, not things to make it.
Yes, but now people usually buy the things that can help them reduce using so much water.
Okay, thank you.
So, Delegate of France has the floor.
How would you support cleaning up the sweetwater areas?
We will organize the charity events that will have actions where people can buy things or just pay money for us, and we will pay money for the divers that will help to clean the bed down.
Okay, it's a good idea. Thank you.
Delegate of China has the floor.
In point number 7, you encourage the banning of the sale of halogen bulbs. Do you want to ban the whole industry in one sweep?
No, it's gonna take some time, but it's gonna be worth it because we're gonna save the energy.
And how are you going to remanufacture the manufacturing devices of these halogen bulbs?
Can you repeat?
How are you going to remanufacture the machines that produce halogen bulbs? They are only designed to produce one kind of bulbs.
We can deconstruct the machines and make new ones from it.
And who's gonna pay for that?
It can be the mechanics that usually were working for the company, and this can be a normal salary for them.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate of Kenya has the floor.
What are you going to do to condemn the destruction of the environment?
We're gonna make a special event for it, so people can know and will know about destruction of the environment.
Okay, good point.
Delegate of Brazil has the floor.
I just have one more question. How do you want to encourage people to use this public transport?
Can you repeat?
How do you want to encourage people to use public transport?
We don't need to encourage them. In my opinion, they will use it because of the effects of the climate change. And this how much cars are on the street right now. People go to work and stay in the traffic for about an hour. They need to wake up an hour earlier just to be on the time at the work, school.
Yeah, but when you're like riding with your own car,
yeah,
you have everything under control. You know when to like set off everything.
Yeah,
like
and
this.
underground and buses, you've got the same thing too.
But these days, like most people don't really care about environments and they just want to feel comfortable.
In my opinion, these days people care more about environment than that was about 15 years ago. So the buses are on the new designs, so they are comfortable too. They are not like they were 15 years ago or 40 years ago.
But they are also really crowded sometimes and people don't feel comfortable.
Yes, but if people would use the public transport, we can afford more buses, maybe more electric buses, so there will be one bus won't be so crowded.
Okay, thank you.
Will the House please come to order? Okay, please be more quiet. So, delegate of Uganda has the floor.
I want to ask about point 8. You wrote about deplores deforestation of rainforest. How do you actually want to do it?
Right now, people of South America know how bad is the situation with rainforest. Hectares were cut down in the past years, so they will want to help us to stop this.
Okay, thanks.
Delegate of Spain has the floor.
In point 7, you encouraged banning the sale of halogen bulbs and saving electric light. However, what would you do? For example, in New York, where there's a street that is only halogen bulbs and big TV screens, and they belong to the biggest companies that have some kind of arrangement with the people in power, or they are the people in power, and they think that it's the most efficient in that way.
The buildings in New York are real high, and the billboards on the buildings are turned on by electricity, so they can use the reduced electricity like solar system to make them work. And don't use.
Delegate of France has the floor.
But what about these old people who have cars? Are they ought to sell it now?
You mean the 9 point?
Yeah, I mean this point.
People can sell the cars they have now and buy electric cars.
Yeah, but not every person can afford it.
So they can use the free public transport. To the time they will get the money to afford the car.
Yeah, but public transport can't offer them transport on the time to their job always, not always.
The underground stations are always on the time. But maybe the buses can be a problem in winter, but we can have a solution for it, but we just need to talk about this in companies.
Yeah, so what would you do with the buses which are late or which never comes on
if free public transport will go into the life, the buses will be on a time and will always be at the bus stop. If there will be a problem, the extra bus, the small type of a bus, can come and just take people to the work.
But will the small bus take all the people who want to travel by the normal bus? I mean, they all can't get on it.
I think yes, they will like to go to use the small bus because they need to go to the work, and if we gonna tell them how this whole thing gonna work, the small buses, the 2 small buses, the 3 small buses can come to the 1 bus stop, so this won't be a problem.
Okay, but it would be expensive.
We can reduce some programs that never came to life, like 500 on the first child, and get the money from this project to the project of a free public transport.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, so the debate is closed now and we'll move to the voting procedure. Will those in favor of the resolution raise their placards? Please count the votes. Okay, so will those opposed raise their placards? Okay. Are there any abstentions? So as I see, the resolution has passed. Thank you.
So all the resolutions has been read already. Thank you everybody for your great work together. I think we did great, but you did so great. We did everything before the time. So please stay on your seats about 15 minutes. When your place to eat will be ready, we will tell you everything. So please enjoy your little break here. Don't move from here, and we will see each other in 15 minutes in the coffee place. Thank you very much.